hosted by the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley. My name is Mary Shaquin, and your moderator for this evening, and I am a League member. And before we get into the heart of why we're all here, I'd like to invite Kathy Kinsella, who is the president of the Greater Verde Valley chapter, to come up and say a few words about the work of the League.
Thank you, Mary. I just wanted to welcome everybody here. Thank you for coming. People are getting used to me saying this, but I'm sort of the commercial that you have to endure before you get to the main program. I just wanted to tell you that the League offers so many different programs. This is just one of them. We do voter education forums like this for every local race. We do philosophy and politics, which are discussions on issues from, I guarantee you, an aspect that you'd never thought of before. We do Let's Talk Politics, which is a morning talking group about whatever's on your mind that people are calling the best therapy in town. We have a book club. We have a movie club. We do movies at Mary Fisher Theater in conjunction with the theater at times. We have so many different programs. There really is something for everyone. We thank you for being here. We encourage you to come out to some of our other events. And I just wanted to let you know of two that are coming up. There is Philosophy and Politics on Wednesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. down at Yavapai College. Is going to be talking about thoughts are things, the inner life and outer world, which is going to be a really healthy discussion about why our dialogue around politics has become so unhealthy. So it's really going to talk about things have become nasty. Why is that? How do we stop that? The nastier the discussion gets, the nastier we tend to be. The nastier we tend to be, the nastier the discussion gets. So Andrea Cristal is going to lead us in that discussion about what in our way of thinking and acting has created our politics. And then I also want to let you know, and there are flyers for these events on the counter outside the door. And on our annual fall Hot Topic Luncheon, which will be on Thursday, November 15th, is going to have guest speaker Mike Noble. Mike Noble is the president, the managing partner and chief pollster for OH Predictive Insights. When you see on TV, this poll said this one's ahead, this poll said, you think this, even though you may not. Those polls are sometimes coming from OH Predictive Insights. They're one of the largest polling firms in Arizona. Mike is like the go-to guy for quotes and things like that. He is going to speak to us about, did the predictions hold true? Because this is going to be post-election. Did predictions hold true? So can we tell things from polling? Can we predict trends in the ways our politics are going, at least here in Arizona? So I really urge you to come to that luncheon. Plus the food is really good. We've expanded menu this year. So for those of you who haven't been before, there's something for you there too. If you're not a League member, I urge you to please join. It's important that we have your support so that we can keep doing these things that support our community. So again, thank you for being here, and Mary, thank you for the job I know you're going to do.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll get to my script now. Just a comment about the League. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, envisions a democracy where every person has a desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. And that is one of the reasons why we lead these forums, because we like participation. We want people informed. So thank you for being here this evening. Before we get started, I would like to thank Ryan from Verde Valley TV being here. This forum will be showing on Cable 1, Channel 56, Suddenlink Channel 2, and YouTube. So if you just go on your computer, I'm sure you can find it, or if you have Cable 1 and Suddenlink, you can find it on your TV. The purpose of this forum is for you, the audience, to get to hear the candidates on why they want to serve on the Sedona Fire District Board. It is also an opportunity to question the candidates about issues important to you. The goal for this forum is fairness, civility, and engagement. I would like to take this time right now to introduce a couple of key League members. The first is Robin Prudhomme-Bauer, who's right here in the front. She has little signs. Most of the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, so she has a 1-minute sign, a 30-second sign, and a stop sign. If the stop sign doesn't work, I take away the microphone. That does work every time. I would also like to thank Barbara Luttrell and Kathy Kinsella, who are here going to be collecting the cards. So please, as we're doing this, write your questions on the card. They will hold your hand up. They'll come and collect the cards. It's wonderful for me because they take and sort the cards for me. Also, I would ask, please write legibly so that I can read it, and so they can. I mean, that's one of their roles too, is to write some things over if we can't quite read what's being said. Also, just so that you know, sometimes people want to ask one specific candidate a question. My policy is any question all 4 candidates will be answering. It's the way I operate, so just know that as we go through this. This whole forum this evening, there are 3 parts. The first part is opening remarks. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves to the audience. Then each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the question that the League of Women Voters has provided. Then part 2 is questions from you, the audience. We just talked about the 3 to 5 cards. Depending upon the question that's asked, I may give the candidates 1 minute or 2 minutes to answer them. I will ask, please, that you be respectful when you write your questions. That's really important. Part 3 then is closing remarks. The candidates will have 2 minutes to make their closing remarks. Just so you know the process of people speaking, to make it fair, we drew numbers before we started this evening, so that's the order the candidates are sitting in. So Russ will be the first one to speak, and then I'll just keep moving down the line, and different people will start with each question. Before we get started, I have a few guidelines, so we're all on the same page. The moderator's role is to manage the forum fairly for all candidates and the audience, with the goal to keep the discussion moving forward. The candidates are to be respectful of each other's points of view, speak your mind freely, but do not engage in personal attacks, and the candidates will not interrupt one another. The audience is asked to refrain from applauding or in any other way demonstrating support or non-support for the candidates and their comments. Time limits on responses to questions will be strictly observed, and I'm really good at that. And I will have the responsibility for ensuring that those time limits are followed. And then, I've never had this happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. If the guidelines are not followed, then we end the forum, which I'm sure everyone can understand. I would like to now introduce the candidates. I'm going to do this by alphabetical order. Our candidates are El Camelo, Russ Demaray, Jean McCarthy, and Joy Michelle Moore. And unable to attend this evening are 2 candidates, Dwight Kadar and Mike Schrader. I have their opening statements, which I will read following the candidates reading their opening statements, and then responses to questions that we will have out in back. So without further ado, I would like to begin this candidate forum, and I invite Russ to begin with your opening statement, and you will have 2 minutes.
Okay. I think I'll start with my background, give you a little bit about that. I've been a Sedona homeowner and resident for 23 years. I've got a BS degree in chemical engineering from Michigan State University. I have an MBA in finance from Loyola University. And I have an international marketing certificate from DePaul University. I've also been a licensed commercial pilot for the past 40 years. I've served on the Sedona Oak Creek Airport Authority Board, first as treasurer and then as president for 10 years. After leaving the board, I worked to develop and present an aviation accident safety program for first responders, which was attended by about 90% of the Sedona Fire District, as well as the Cottonwood Verde Valley District also. I love the Sedona firefighters. They are young, smart, energetic, eager to learn, and committed to make a difference. When Mike and Dwight and myself decided to run as a slate, we were committed to bring these same qualities to the 3 positions. For the past 8 years, you, the voters, have had a say in who will represent your interest and provide physical oversight while making public safety a priority. The 3 of us combined have 50 years of residency. We have spent untold hours devoted to community service, We have a wealth of diverse experience in leadership, customer service, efficient business operations, sound physical management, and personnel development and management. We will bring a fresh perspective to the Fire District Board. And we have analytical skills to balance the needs of the fire department and available assets to ensure the fire district and the firemen get the best possible protection. Everyone, including the fire department, wins when tax dollars work effectively.
Perfect. Thank you. Russ? Jean?
First, let me thank the Verde Valley League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and for those of you in the audience for attending. My wife Jackie and I love Sedona, and will continue to be involved in our community in any way we can. I've been a member of Sedona Fire District Citizens Advisory Committee and a civilian member of Sedona Fire District Public Safety Personnel Retirement Board. I presently serve on the fire board, continuing the term of a member of the design. Being a candidate for the Sedona Fire Board is a continuance of my public safety career. I grew up and attended schools in Southern California, served in the Army's 101st Airborne Division and 24th Infantry Division in Europe. Following my discharge, I joined the Los Angeles Police Department, and following that very short 3-year law enforcement career, I became a firefighter working for the city of Whittier, and later the County of Los Angeles Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic. Upon attaining the rank of captain, I commanded engine and truck companies in the 3rd largest department in the nation. In my final years, I was assigned to the EMS section, and 1/3 of the department's emergency medical services, specializing in legal, legislative, risk management issues. After retiring, I helped to form the Los Angeles Metropolitan Medical Strike Team, consisting of physicians, nurses, paramedics, and EMTs, trained and equipped to respond to acts of terrorism. When the project was completed, I was hired by the FBI's National Security Division. My wife Jackie and I are both artists. She is a professor of art and fashion illustrator, high watercolor landscape artist. We are members of the Art Center and the Rescue Community Baptist Church. I'm passionate about the fire service of my community. The Sedona Fire District is an honor to serve you as a fire board member. I hope you allow me to continue as your representative on the fire board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Joy?
Good evening. My name is Joy Michelle Moore. I am a former Sedona Fire District Governing Board member, elected in the election of 2004. I did receive the most number of votes in that election, and during my 4-year term, I achieved many important goals to help our first responders as well as to help the public, because I'm not a professional politician. I don't feel that we need a politician right now. We need a passionate and knowledgeable voice, and I am that voice. I have volunteered for over a dozen nonprofit organizations over the past 30 years around the country, including the Sedona Fire District, the Special Olympics, and even the Raleigh Police Department. And during that time, I received the Presidential Service Award for over 500 hours of volunteer service. During that time, I volunteered to make a difference. We need to elect a governing board member who will do the right thing, not the right thing for now. Firefighters are trained to run into burning buildings when everyone else is running out. As an integral part of the fire district, so should our governing board run into the face of the discontent of public, ready to quash their fears of the known and unknown by educating them on the facts. I plan on being one of the 5 governing board members to bear that responsibility and work diligently to make the important decisions that will keep our district running strong. I will help to build the trust of our community while taking care of our first responders. As a citizen, a person, and a mother, I have always been an advocate for all first responders and people in need. I only have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to go to the end. Our brave men and women have been on hundreds of technical rescues, extraditing people from mountaintops, swift water calls, inaccessible trails, and anywhere that you can imagine with the use of tools that you, the people, help them to purchase. We need to continue to support our first responders and the Sedona Fire District because they are supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Al?
Thank you. Well, good evening, and I also would like to thank the League for this special forum. And I also want to thank Gene McCarthy for agreeing to run as my teammate for the Sedona Fire District for 2 of the open seats in this election. I also want to thank Joey Moore and Russ Demeray for stepping up and running for this board position. You know, I moved to Sedona in 1998, and I lived in the village for 17 years and currently now live in West Sedona. I attended the University of Cincinnati and Santa Barbara City College with an emphasis in marketing. But here in Sedona, I'm known for my extensive service to the community and my extensive involvement with nonprofit organizations and events. I have and do serve on many nonprofit boards, committees as a director, board president, and organizer. I am currently on the board of directors of the Sedona Community Center, that's Meals on Wheels, for the last 20 years. I'm on the board of the Sedona Historical Society and the Sedona Chamber of Commerce. I started, along with several others, Sedona Fair, Inc., which is a nonprofit that produces events, mainly the Sedona Wine Fest, which just ended this weekend. It was a big hit. I am the recipient of the Sedona Community Foundation's Volunteer of the Year in 2015, and I personally have worked in real estate sales and marketing business prior to my arrival here in Sedona, and continue in the marketing and public relations business in Sedona under the name of Camello Media Services. I'm eating up the clock. I think I saw this on TV. Oh, it's okay. You know, I do not have an agenda to use my position on the board for anything personal that benefits me, but I want to focus my attention on maintaining and improving the superior quality and services provided by the district, and will challenge anyone who wishes to diminish or reduce those services. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Al. At this time, I would like to read opening statements that have been provided by the other 2 candidates. The first is from Dwight Kadar. I apologize for not attending the Sedona Fire District Board Candidate Forum tonight. Before the League of Women Voters contacted me about the date of this forum, my wife Andrea and I had paid to attend the 2-date Arizona Drug Summit in Phoenix. We are actively involved in fighting the illegal drug problem here in Arizona through our association with Arizonans for Responsible Drug Policy and MATForce, a group of Yavapai County citizens committed to working to build healthier communities by striving to eliminate substance abuse and its effects, especially as it affects our children. The other date, October 9th, offered by the League of Women Voters for a candidate forum, also conflicted with previous plans I had made to be out of town. Russ Demery, Mike Schrader, and I are running as a team for the Sedona Fire District Board. Each of us will bring unique education and business skills, including engineering, finance, customer service, construction, marketing, and management to the Sedona Fire District Board. Our education and business skills honed during our careers will complement the Fire District operations experience and background of the 2 board members not up for election this year. This combination of our experiences with the existing Fire District operations experiences will ensure the continued safety of you and your property. At the same time, you will have advocates on the board to ensure that your property tax dollars are being spent in the most fiscally responsible manner. We have brought rack cards for you to take home describing our education and business experience and our goals for the Sedona Fire District. The rack card includes our website address where you can examine our qualifications in further detail. In addition, we are holding an ice cream social at the Elks Lodge on Airport Road this coming Saturday, September 29th, from 1 to 3:30 p.m. This event will enable you to talk directly to each of us. Thank you, Dwight Kadar. These are the opening remarks from Mike Schrader. I apologize for not being able to attend the forum this evening. Before the League announced this forum, I accepted a 2-year position on the 944th Fighter Wing Honorary Commander program at Luke Air Force Base, which includes activities at Luke Air Force Base this afternoon and Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas this evening and tomorrow. The other date offered by the League was October 9th, and I will be out of the country. Russ Demery, Dwight Kadar, and I are running as a team for the Sedona Fire District Board. Each one of us brings a unique skill set based on our education backgrounds and personal experiences. The 2 existing members offer a unique skill set also, especially Mr. Soto with his vast experience on the inside of fire department operations. The voters have not voted for a fire board position for at least 8 years. As members have come and gone, the replacements have all been appointed. One of the 3 of us have attended every meeting since last fall and have never seen a decision by management challenged. The board is the taxpayer's advocate and should be making decisions on a variety of experiences when working with management. A bunch of board members with all the same background brings nothing to the table. When you support the 3 of us, you are supporting diversity of talents and skill sets that is responsibility of any board, public or private. This should not be a popularity contest. In the back of the room are our rack cards describing our diverse skill sets along with our web address that goes into further detail. Please join us at the Elks Lodge on Airport Road this Saturday from 1 to 3:30 for an ice cream social where we can take the time that you deserve to talk to us in detail and ask whatever questions that are appropriate for this position. We may even have a bit of music. Mike Schrader. I didn't time it before I started. At this time, we will have the candidates respond to the League question that was provided to them ahead of time. That question is, what is the biggest issue facing the Sedona Fire District and the community it serves? In order to keep costs down for taxpayers, how do you see the organization growing in the future to meet the needs of the community? And we will start with Jean.
Fellow taxpayers, I believe the biggest issue in sustaining what I believe to be one of the finest, well-managed, medium-sized fire departments I've encountered in my 35 years of public safety. Presently, you have a board and a fire chief who are accountable, fiscally responsible, who constantly strive for excellence in providing professional, responsive emergency services, and who focus on the future. Issues the fire district have dealt with are unfunded mandates, state legislation, mill rate cap, rising pension costs, traffic challenges, and getting back on track after a devastating downturn in the economy. There have been past accusations of mismanagement and negligence from some villainizing anyone involved with government services and calling the purchase of frontline apparatus irresponsible spending. So what is the biggest issue facing the Sedona Fire District, and how are we going to fund growth to meet the needs of the community? It is to sustain what we have and maintain a capital improvement fund to reduce the need for one-time budget increases that depend upon financing to fund capital projects. The capital fund is intended to provide a source of funds for the effective operation of the Sedona Fire District. It is the board that addresses capital needs and the allocation of funds to and from the capital fund. Many of those needs identified years ago by previous fire boards still remain. There's still a need to rebuild Station 4 in Uptown and relocate and build Station 5 in the Canyon. The safety issues and deficiencies at Station 3 in the Village and at Station 1 in West Sedona still remain. I close by saying your fire district is not broken, but needs to be supported by the citizens it serves. When elected, I will continue to be available to the taxpayers, be a good listener, have community awareness, and meet and abide by the open meeting laws of the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Thank Joy? Sure. What is the biggest issue facing the Sedona Fire District and the community it serves? In order to keep costs down for taxpayers, how do you see the organization growing in the future to meet the needs of the community?
So I feel that one of the biggest issues that the Sedona Fire District is encountering right now is a lack of knowledge from the public to understand really what the district is about, what they do, their services that they provide, and what they can really do for all of us, as opposed to the information that certain citizens are getting that is of a negative tone. I feel mostly that knowledge, true knowledge and a true understanding of what the fire district does is what we need to express, and I think that's the biggest problem at this point, because I feel that the Sedona Fire District is doing a wonderful job. We always need to tweak something here and there, but they're working as hard as they can, they're working diligently, and they're bringing us the safest Sedona that we can have. To bring costs down, I feel that we can work a little harder on getting grants. Not so much matching grants, but perhaps grants from quasi-governmental agencies or part of the government or some nonprofits that will aid us in funding our programs, such as the free car seats, CPR training, and other programs that Sedona Fire District provides. As far as a growing organization, I feel that we don't have a whole lot more growth to do unless the town of Sedona or the city of Sedona decides that they're going to grow exponentially, and I just don't see that. I feel that the path that they're taking right now with growth is proportionate with our town and our city. And I apologize for not being a little more eloquent, but the answer that I had, I left at home. So this is off of the top of my head, and this is all coming from my heart.
Al?
We all have one thing in common: disaster can strike at any time. We can be in a car wreck, we can slip in a bathtub, we could have a stroke. Our house could catch on fire, our forest could burst into flames, or we could slip and fall off a rock when we're on one of our hikes. And when our lives are in jeopardy, we all do the same thing we call 9/11. We have expectations that help us on the way quickly, and motivated firefighters and emergency medical personnel will have the equipment, skills, and the ability to keep us alive and protect our property. We are fortunate to live here. The Sedona Fire District is one of America's most sophisticated, professionally run, and equipped fire and medical emergency systems. I am running to preserve and to improve the ability of this exceptional service. The district is continually evaluating its equipment, fire trucks, EMS ambulances, location of its stations, and modernizing its stations, all with an eye on being better at responding to emergencies on fire and medical. We must be prudent in the use of our tax funds, recognizing that the property taxes come from homes, businesses, and land, but we must be willing to invest in the future to be even better at saving lives. We will grow. We will grow as demand increases, as service calls increase, which they do because we get more visitors and older citizens that need more medical attention, and with the growth in population, especially in areas outside of Sedona, such as the village. And the most important and scariest moment in our lives is when we dial 911, and I will keep this in mind in the decisions I make to be a representative of the governing board of the Sedona Fire District. Thank you.
And Russ?
Okay, I have a little different view than the others. I believe the biggest issue facing the Sedona Fire District in this community is traffic and mass parking along the roads. Clogged roads make it exceedingly difficult to get to some of the areas as Oak Creek Canyon and even in town. Just recently, a few weeks ago, there was a house fire in Casa Contenta, and the Sedona firemen were unable to respond due to holiday traffic. According to the firefighters on the scene, equipment from the Verde Valley Fire District had to be dispatched for the fire. We need to do better. If there's a fire in the canyon, evacuation is challenging with a 2-lane road in and out. Mike and Dwight and I have met with residents in the canyon, and they have suggested an alternate route to exit the canyon in an emergency, which also offers access for emergency vehicles. If elected, those possibilities will be investigated. Also, there's a fire station in the canyon that appears to be underutilized. I doubt a house fire in the canyon could be timely addressed during periods of high traffic. There are several issues facing the city of Sedona, and many of these issues directly impact the fire district. The fire district has ample resources. Some of these resources are being expended on non-productive uses. For instance, the fire board recently approved hiring a public relations consultant from Phoenix for $30,000. The fire department and EMS are in frequent contact with the public. The best public relations are those fostered by the job well done. The money spent on outside public relations firms could perhaps be better utilized to enhance safety. Strong leadership exhibited by governing board provides an opportunity to ensure the best and most efficient use of available funds and capital assets. We can make an already great Sedona Fire Department even better, and at the same time provide the public with the comfort their tax dollars are being used efficiently and effectively.
Thank you, Russ. We will now start with the questions from the audience, and Joy, you're going to be the first up to answer this one, okay? How much weight will you give to the advice of the Fire District Citizens Advisory Board, and how else do you plan to solicit input from the community? And you have 2 minutes for this.
Okay, so I feel that it's important to give them a good deal of weight because they're coming in as volunteers to help make a better Sedona Fire District. I would like to give them the respect of giving them a good amount of weight, you know, as far as their decisions are concerned, and I would like to offer the ability to have additional committees formed so we can have both sides of the story told, or both sides of the questions that need to be asked, and then we can give the proper information, as I said in the beginning. I think it's important to be properly informed. I think when you're not properly informed, that's when you have adverse situations, and we're trying to keep everything as positive as possible with this election. This is the most important midterm election that we've had in decades, and I feel that as a Sedona candidate for the Sedona Fire Governing Board, I want to make sure that we keep it as positive as possible. So with that, I want to give as much weight as possible, and I want to offer as many citizens as possible the ability to speak with us.
Thank you. And as I've mentioned to the candidates, if I give 2 minutes and they don't need it, they're welcome to end what they're saying so we can get to more questions.
Brevity.
Just like right out.
First of all, people that know me know that I'm very open and transparent and available because I love Sedona, and I will make sure that my cell phone is published so that any citizen can reach me for questions or for personal meetings. As far as the governing board committee, I think the idea of an outside voice, a voice that sees the world from a different perspective, is critical in understanding really the big picture of what's going on, especially in a service as critical as the one that saves lives, and that's what the fire district is all about. So I will be as open and as candid as possible to listen and to pay attention to diverse points of view, even those that I don't agree with. And I must admit, education is a continual process for a person like myself who's never been a fireman and only knows the fire service from the position of fire and medical emergencies. I will continue to take advantage of the opportunities of the fire district to learn more about what goes on. For example, a recent visit to the dispatch center in Cottonwood, which was an amazing opportunity to see how sophisticated this operation has become in the new system that benefits all of the Verde Valley.
Thank you, Al. And Russ has asked I read the question again, and it is, how much weight will you give to the advice of the Fire District Citizens Advisory Board? And how else do you plan to solicit input from the community?
The weight for the advisory board, of course, hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, now you can hear me. Okay. The advisory board, of course, I've spent my whole life problem solving, and problem solving always entails getting all the information you can get from all sources. And that's, whether it's an advisory board, the community, both myself, Mike, Dwight, we welcome contact, input from any source available. And what was the other part?
How else do you plan to solicit input from the community?
Well, we always are welcoming input from the community from whatever source. We just like this campaign, we want to hear from the community. We want one-on-one discussion from people. We've been to the canyon. We've been to the village of Oak Creek. We've met with people. This is a very large district that the Sedona Fire Department serves, and many of the areas have different needs than the main part of Sedona. So it's a challenge to get all those areas covered, but we certainly will welcome any input from all sources.
Thank you, Russ. Jean? I don't think it's on.
As I mentioned earlier, it's my belief that the Sedona Fire District is functioning just fine. We just went through the budget. This is a lean budget, folks. This and EMS and delivery of fire service, it doesn't come cheap. Any fire district throughout the nation, any fire department understands that. Here in Sedona, we're very, very fortunate to live in an area that can afford excellent fire protection and EMS services. The Citizens Advisory Committee last year that advised the board, I was on that committee. For weeks, we listened to people educate us on how the fire district is funded and what our options were. We toured all the stations and looked at the crumbling, in some cases, infrastructure of buildings constructed 40 years ago. We looked at, for example, Station 4, the width of the fire doors that the apparatus has to exit, far too narrow for those of modern equipment. We went into the canyon and toured the station there, a two-man canyon, with an engine that responds to any kind of an emergency in the area, but yet have to wait for the next in engine because it's a two-man in, two-man out response. They have to wait before they can enter a burning structure. So my opinion and my observation from this particular time that I spent on that committee, we provided to the board what we felt was a figure of $17.9 million, which by the way was much lower than the figure that we originally came up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. This next question, we're going to do a minute, Robin. Okay. The audience members would like to know, and we start with you, Al, specifically, what about your background or experiences makes you a strong candidate for the Sedona Fire District Governing Board?
Like I said, I've lived here in Sedona for 20 years, and right from the very beginning, I became involved in local nonprofits, working on events and nonprofit boards. I work with the Sedona Community Center and the Meals on Wheels program, and eventually created the tax credit fundraising program that they use, and for the last 7 or 8 years, we have raised over $800,000. This is an example of me leading, showing the board at the community center that there are new ways to raise money to help fund our critical mission of feeding the seniors that need it. I have an extensive background in sales and marketing, and have worked with many committees here in Sedona, from the Chamber of Commerce to the Heritage Museum, and including the board up at the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Russ?
Yeah, I think,
Gonna have to hold it closer. Sorry.
yeah, okay. Yeah, my background has always been problem solving. It's probably the engineering background, but I've owned several small businesses, and I've been on several boards. And the main thing is that's what I bring to this fire department, is the ability to problem solve, to look at problems, find solutions, find creative solutions, and move forward from there. So that's what I think I would bring. And
Great, thank you. Jean?
Well, 35 years has given me quite a bit of experience in the third largest fire department in this nation, where I served as a firefighter in a small community, Whittier, California, and also in Los Angeles, which is in a contract consolidated fire protection district for probably 75 or 80 stations now. There I learned and functioned within as a firefighter, hazardous materials incidents, EMS certainly is 80% of our function, swiftwater rescue, and all of the things that all of the Sedona firefighters are trained to do. So I do understand this department, their function, and I do understand how they serve this community. And to me, it's one of the best that I've encountered. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Joy?
Well, my experience has been in a lot of different areas. I volunteered around the country with the Raleigh Police Department. I worked directly with the fire department in Raleigh as well. I was a former governing board member here, and I spent 4 years with a spotless record, making a lot of positive changes. I've been CPR and first aid certified for 30 years, and I have quite a bit of nursing experience, as I was a nursing minor in college. I've been a business owner many times over. I have a lot of sales experience as a realtor. I'm also a paralegal. I went to Duke and got my paralegal certification, so I have a lot of information that would be helpful. Additionally, I have an extensive background in public relations, and I am absolutely a problem solver. If I find a problem, I will solve it, and I will solve it no matter what it takes. I won't go to sleep until it is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Russ, we're going to start with you on this question, okay? Can you please discuss the fire department's capital needs and how you will fund them since the bond failed? I think we should give 2 minutes on this one.
well, I'd have to look at the current budget to see where the funds in the shortfall comes from. The funding for the fire board, of course, comes from property taxes, and as property values grow, the available funds to the fire district grow as well. And it's my understanding the bond that failed for the building of a new fire station, that the existing fire station is able to be remodeled at considerably lower cost, and that's a solution, a creative solution to a problem where you didn't get the bond passed.
Thank you. You know what? I'm going to switch microphones with you. Jean, let's use that one.
The taxpayers have spoken, and the fire district will continue providing the excellent service it has and will in the future. We have the folks in the community, myself included. I'm a pensioner on a fixed income, and I'm concerned about my property tax just like you are. Last year's bond, what have you, again, the taxpayers spoke, and we today are on the board are looking at ways to fund capital improvements. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we still have Station 4 in Uptown, Station 5, Station 3, and Station 1, all in need of repair. And in Uptown, it's to replace that station. It is not built for modern equipment, believe me. And so here we are today on ways to fund future growth. And it's funded by, it's like a piggy bank. I'm sure that the rest of you in your home budget and what have you set aside funds to make a purchase is something that's important to you. Here in this community, the fire district sets aside funds for capital outlays and for construction, new fire engines. And just recently, one of the fire engines, it had to be replaced. It just was not prepared to keep it, and still sent it out on calls to other communities, especially when these major fires and so on. So how do we do that? We have money in our piggy bank, our capital fund, to make those purchases, just like you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Joy.
Am I on? Okay. So the bond did not go through. People have spoken. It was a very interesting time. But how do we fund the Sedona Fire District with what we have? I feel like we need to work as best as we can with what we currently have, not so much putting a Band-Aid on a boo-boo, but we want to stick to the budget and work within whatever parameters that are currently there. And then at the same time, I think we need to seek other avenues of revenue, such as grants. Now, the grant funding could be either a matching grant or a non-grant matching grant. I think the non-matching grants are the ones that we really need to go for. We can have people that are well-versed in grant writing do a search and see where we can get the most money from. We could probably even expand our boundaries and perhaps get more of the tax base. I feel that it was just it was an interesting situation with that bond, and I was trying to figure out a way how we can do it. And it's a question for a governing board member, but it's also a question that needs to be properly researched. We need time to think of the best way that we can come up with money without taking any more money from the taxpayer. We don't want to raise the mill levy and have the taxpayer pay more, but at the same time, we do not want to reduce services. So we have to put our heads together, and we have to be as intelligent as we can and as resourceful as we can together as a community to help the Sedona Fire District, who in turn will be helping us.
Al?
This is a good question. I won't repeat what Jean said, but most of the needs that were expressed in the bond last fall still exist, whether it be the improvements to the station the replacement of the station in Uptown, or any of the other general maintenance and updating of the other stations. But one thing I'd like to bring to everybody's attention is the critical need in Oak Creek Canyon. I have in front of me a letter from Daniel Garland Jr. about the whole issue of what to do in the canyon. If you lived in the canyon, you would be nervous. The relocation will immediately resolve the problems that property owners have had attaining affordable homeowners insurance by placing the station within a 5-mile radius of all property owners in the canyon. Currently, many residents north of Junipine pay higher insurance rates due to their distance from Station 5. Slide Rock provides an ideal central location for the most efficient emergency response throughout the entire canyon. The construction of a new, larger facility in Slide Rock will allow for additional space to house Forest Service and hotshot crews during the wildfire season. Station 5, originally built for a volunteer fire department, is no longer sufficient for the current equipment and crew member needs. A new upgraded facility is long overdue. And keep in mind, the Garland family owns some of the land underneath the fire station in Oak Creek Canyon.
Thank you, Al. And Jean, this next question you get to start. Do you feel that the district is at appropriate staff levels? And if not, what is needed?
Yes.
And I'm going to give a minute. Robin.
Yes, I do. We are fortunate to have the men and in this department and our staff, men and women, who provide excellent service. Let me begin with the staff. Payroll, EMS billing, GIS, telecommunications, on and on. Those are all the supporting elements within for the fire district. The firefighters, yes, well-staffed, positioned to respond to any incident, emergency incident that you might think of. And so I just hope and pray that if you have a need to call 911, that when they do arrive, they arrive quickly, well-equipped, well-trained, and to provide a service. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Joy?
I concur. I agree that the staff levels are appropriate. We have some of the best and well-trained first responders in the entire country. We enjoy having the highest level of service because we have made it a point to hire people with the most experience, and we've paid to do so. However, I don't think we need to increase the staff. I think we just need to continue to train our staff. I'm not well versed in this, and I have to apologize, but I do think at this point the staff levels are appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Al?
An interesting point, staff levels are right now substantially less than what they were in 2009. There are about 100 employees in the fire district, of which about 75 are firefighters and EMS personnel. And by the way, all firefighters are cross-trained in EMS. I do think that the staffing levels is adequate as we see it now. And there are about 25 firefighters and EMS on duty at any one point in time. So you have to have enough staff to be able to have the stations all manned. We've recently had some emergencies that took place that literally had all the fire stations active at the same time and created some great stress on the system. So it is definitely important that we keep the staff at maximum level that we need. And I believe, from what I understand from the fire chief, he's very happy with the current levels of staffing. Thank you.
Thank you. And Russ?
This is a difficult question to ask or to answer until I have a better look at the way the staffing is done and how the staffing is allocated. On the surface, there's some areas that look like they have the ratio of firemen to captains seems a little on the high side. but I really can't answer that completely until I have a chance to look at the staffing and how they're used, and that's like any endeavor. You really have to understand the district and just how the assets are allocated.
Thank you, Russ. For our next question, we're going to start with you, Joy. And I think we'll give 2 minutes on this question in case you need it. What do you think are the areas for improvement with the Sedona Fire District that you want to address by running for the board?
So, with my past experience with the board, I feel that there are not a whole lot of areas for improvement at this point, but there still are. So, one of the areas I feel is communication with the public. That's extremely important. If we have positive communication with the public, or negative, as long as it's communication and we give them the information they need and we educate them, I think we'll be a better district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the question again.
What do you think are areas for improvement with the Sedona Fire District that you would like to address if you're elected to the board?
Well, first of all, the board does not run the fire district. The fire district hires the best in personnel, the fire chief, and the employees. But the board does listen and does become engaged in the discussion of what changes the fire district or the fire chief and staff wish to make. I do think, and I agree with Joy, that there's a disconnect in a lot of people understanding how big the district is. It goes all the way to Interstate 17, all the way up into Oak Creek Canyon, and from a medical point of view, almost all the mountain areas around here. It goes all the way to Enchantment and the subdivisions far west out on Dry Creek Road, the upper and lower loop areas. That's all this district. It's in over 168 square miles. So I think one of the things I would like to see improved is the way we communicate to the general public, to the 20,000 residents that live in this district, and also try to make sure that our temporary residents, those tourists that are here for a day at a time or a week at a time, understand that we are there for them. When they call 911, they get the same services that we as residents get, because that's the way the fire system in America works. And the medical emergencies, which is the bulk of all the calls that we get, do tend to have a fair share of calls to help our visitors. And I must admit that I think that the fire district doesn't have a lot of need for improvements because it is a well-run organization.
Thank you, Al. Russ.
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to change is the board meetings are entirely too wordy and too long. But other than that, on a different note, though, staffing is a real concern, especially with some areas like the canyon. They have the fire station by Garland's there that it's our understanding that is currently being staffed by one fireman at times. And when you see the traffic in the canyon, and sometimes it takes 2 hours to get through that canyon, I don't know how the fire trucks can get there if you had a fire, a house fire or something. But staffing allocation, really, I'd like to look at and see if we can't do a better job of getting that. I know that's a big concern in the canyon, but other than that, and oversight, the board's job is oversight to look at the budget, look how the money is being funded, and those are things we want to look at to make sure that the tax dollars are being used in the most efficient manner.
Thank you. Jean?
I wish I could ask you guys questions and to see what you think about staffing, your thoughts about it. Being a firefighter, what have you, is a dangerous job. We lose so many people every month, firefighters and law enforcement. So staffing is very important. It is a matter of safety. Every firefighter that comes to work in the morning for his shift, they want to go home. And their families want them to go home as well. And so how an engine or a truck company is staffed is vitally important. First, you have a captain who's supervising that particular crew. You have a firefighter engineer who's driving that piece of apparatus and keeping it safe and equipped. And hopefully you have 2 firefighters that take a line in and make the initial attack. When you have an EMS call, people often wonder, well, why are all these people here? We have an ambulance, and we have a cop car, and we've got an engine company, and so on and so forth. It's important that if you have a medical emergency, you have the right people there at the right time with the right equipment. So staffing, it's vital. And again, here in Sedona, we have some great people who are highly trained as EMTs and paramedics, engineers, people with hazmat knowledge, some exceptional technical rescue people who are working off the side of a helicopter deep into the canyon, and often, hopefully not too often, fighting catastrophic brush fires or forest fires within our canyon. So with that, I'll end.
Thank you, Gene. And Al, you will be the first to answer this question. What amount of ongoing training for our firefighters do you support? Should there be a set amount of training hours per person, per year? What is your recommendation? And we will give a minute, Robin.
Well, I suppose if I was the fire chief, I could answer this question directly. But as a citizen who is a member of this community for 20 years, and I've been a student of the school of the fire district almost the same time, I can tell you that I think that the district is well run, and we shouldn't be too concerned as citizens whether or not the staff is being well trained, because they are. We have hired the best in management. We have hired some people, support staff that advises the administration of the fire district, who then works with the board. So to me, I believe that the staffing and the training is completely adequate, and there is no limit to the amount of training that they should have access to. Being a firefighter, especially EMS, is a ever-evolving industry, and they must have access to all the possible tools of the trade.
Thank you, Al. Russ?
I don't think you can ever have enough training, no matter what job you're involved. In my experience with the firemen, they have a thirst for training. When we were at the airport and developed our aviation program to train the firefighters on aviation accidents, they were enthusiastic. We really enjoyed that, and there's just training is an ongoing thing. I mean, even as a pilot, I have to train all the time, and I've been flying for 45 years, private aircraft, but I never stop learning, and that should be the mindset for the fire department as well. They never should stop learning. There's just always something new, something different, and you have to maintain that skill level. You can't ever set back and say, well, I've done that. It's never the same.
Thank you. Gene?
My answer is going to be very short. Who's responsible for training? It's your fire chief. we hire, the board does, the best fire chief possible for your community, and we have. So the fire, for training, what have you, and we do. Our personnel are well trained, and you can see that by reading the local newspaper and the rescues that they're on. So, thank you.
And Joy.
I feel like we should be following the national guidelines that are set forth for the training of our firefighters, and we are following that currently. We're not just following it for adequate training, we're going above and beyond. So we're fully funded, and we train in everything from fire suppression, full paramedic ambulance services, swift water rescue, which is utilized, technical rescue, which unfortunately is utilized quite a bit, especially in the summer, backcountry rescue, and we also provide mutual aid. The training that we have that's been ongoing, that it continues to be ongoing, is the top. I feel that we're one of the top fire districts in the country, and I feel that our training is set. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Russ. And it is, what strategies would you support to make our fire department prepared in the next decade for increased forest fires?
Well, the forest fires are fought by the U.S. Forest Service. The fire department, of course, is maybe a first responder to a fire, but that's a tough question unless they get the funding from the federal government to participate. I know when the fires have occurred in the canyon, the U.S. Forest Service usually dictates that. We base them at the airport all the time, and in fact, right now we have several trucks based at the airport, and the Sedona Fire District usually is not involved in that unless there's a fire within their boundaries. But so much of the area here is U.S. Forest Service that it's difficult for them to get involved in that.
Thank you, Russ. Jean.
Our firefighters here, many of them specially trained to manage special units that that are assigned to fires throughout the western states, Idaho, California, Nevada, here, elsewhere. And they're there to participate in management of those large fires, and in some cases actually get involved in fighting those fires. And they're sent there for a couple of reasons: to gain experience that they can use right here in your backyard, and to be involved in a management structure that's vitally important within the incident command system that is utilized in every incident, and especially when you have multiple jurisdictions involved in a fire. And so here in Sedona, you have folks that have been out there working hard for weeks at a time, what have you, not seeing their families, and we welcome them back, and they welcome them back with excellent training.
Thank you, Jean. Joy.
So the strategies for the next decade should include providing additional training for the special fire suppression that is needed throughout the country. We work with the Forest Service, we work with every fire district, every type of fire suppression district that there is in the country, we work with them. We provide mutual aid, so I feel that we need to continue with the training with the mutual aid and prepare for the devastating forest fires that are ever encroaching to homes. So with that, I feel that the training needs to be expanded, and I feel that there probably needs to be a new governmental or quasi-governmental agency created to prepare for the devastating fires that are to come. The way this earth is situated, these fires are stopping, so I'm stopped. And we're stopped.
Al.
Another good question. The Sedona Fire District is actually quite large, and it includes a lot of the mountain areas and a lot of the forested areas that you would think would be all the domain of the National Forest Service for fighting fires. But in fact, our firefighters are trained to fight forest fires. They leave Sedona and head to Northern California, as they did this summer, and fought side by side with the firefighters of those other areas and people that came from all over the country. That is in fact how the system works. And I must admit that the moving of the station to Slide Rock in conjunction with the Forest Service and the state park system will be a good move forward to put a staging area for fighting fires in the future, because that's a great place for helicopters to be able to come and go. And our firefighters will be part of the process of fighting any forest fires that will come, because, as we all know, it is a lot drier.
Thank you, Al. This next question, we're going to start with Jean. And I believe this is probably going to have to be the last question, just because of timing. Let me say that there are several questions that we have, and when we get finished with this question, there were several cards I got that had comments of misinformation, if you will. So I'm going to share the comments from the audience on that, just so that you know we will be addressing that. So, Jean, do you think that firefighting services would be better managed if they were privatized or outsourced?
Well, you got a good example just south of us in Scottsdale with a private fire company. There are not too many around the nation. You know, as a firefighter, it's not a job, folks. It's a calling. It's a call. I'm the second one in my family. My grandfather was a San Francisco fireman, joining shortly after the big fire and earthquake in 1906. Many fire sons and daughters follow the footsteps of their families, and so I forgot what the question. I'm a 78-year-old. You have to give me some dispensation for this, for crying out loud. Yes, please, again.
Do you think that firefighting services would be better managed if they were privatized and outsourced?
No.
Joy.
Okay, so I don't feel that this should be outsourced. Services are better managed when they're trained and provided by the government and people basically that know what they're doing. The FDA was created to protect Americans from different types of food that could harm you or medications that can harm you, and they do a good job. If you outsource that privately, I don't believe that it would be done properly because everyone has their own agendas. The agenda needs to be to save lives, 100%, end of story. So I do not think that they should be outsourced. I feel that they should be continued as they are because it's important to do things the right way, not your way.
Thank you, Joy.
It is all about saving lives, and if there is a more efficient, better way to do it, then we should find it. But it's not going to be in privatizing. As a matter of fact, if you hear anybody running for this office that suggests that maybe privatizing the EMS to a private ambulance service is a good idea, I think that you should look them square in the eye and say it's not. Because if I'm elected on the fire board, I will make sure that I fight diligently against any effort to privatize EMS. I do think that the coordinated system between fire and medical services are necessary to be all part of one team. And I will support the fire district's continued training and proficiency in the services being where everybody is cross-trained. So with that, no, privatizing a fire service is not a good idea.
Thank you, Al. And Russ?
I guess I have to say no. No, but I don't believe it should be privatized, but I do think there's other areas you can look at with the fire district. We have a lot of fire districts in the state, and it just seems like there should be a way to share equipment a little more efficiently between these, because some fire districts are wealthier than others and seem to have bigger budgets, but other than that, that's the only thing that maybe would be needed to be looked at.
Okay, thank you. And it's the power of the moderator to change your mind, so we're going to ask one more quick question that I had, okay? And I believe, Joy, we start with you on this one. And this one should be a really quick, like 30-second answer, I'm thinking. Have you any relationship, personal, legal, or familial, with anyone connected in any way with the fire district?
I don't think so. I'm a super honest person, and I will tell you sometimes I don't remember things properly. However, I'm not related to anybody. I was married to someone that provided services, but we aren't divorced. So the answer is no.
Thank you. Al?
Well, the answer is obviously no. I'm a single person. The closest family is about 1,500 miles away, and I have some friends in the fire district. Oh yeah, I know a couple that actually are firemen, but I do not have any direct connection. I have no personal agenda towards the fire district other than let's make sure that when you dial 911, you get the response you're looking for.
Thank you, Al. Russ?
No, I don't know anybody other. I have firemen that are, friends that are firemen. We also, on the airport, which I'm still actively involved, not on the board, but we now have the fire marshal who is serving on the airport board, but not really connected to anything I have to do there.
Thank you. Jean?
No.
Thank you. Before we go to the closing statements, like I said, there are a few statements that were made by the audience, and I would like to address them. I'm not addressing them as questions, but just bringing them to the attention of everyone. A statement was made that no decisions by the board have been challenged. I, an audience member, have challenged at least 2 of them. Also, several audience members were at the Casa Contenta fire, and SFD responded quickly and without obstruction. So I just wanted to clarify that, because the audience, several people have addressed those 2 issues. And if you want to address them further with the candidates afterwards, I know they'll be willing to discuss them with you. At this time, we would like to go to closing statements. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer the questions, and we're going to go backwards. So the person who was 4th in the opening statements will start as first. Al, you're on.
First of all, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. I still marvel at the majestic beauty and the awe of the Red Rocks, but I'm more fascinated by the people who have come to make Sedona their home. We are a small rural town of just 10,000 people, and when you look at the entire fire district, it's about 20,000. We live in a valley. The Verde Valley is just 77,000 people, but we play host to millions who become part of our community for a few hours to weeks at a time. In my mind, we have a responsibility to view these visitors as residents while they're here too. I've come to understand that living in such a wonderful place as Sedona comes with challenges and responsibilities. But now, in the general election of November 6, 2018, I am seeking the elected position as a member of the governing board of the Sedona Fire District. This five-person board has a critical mission. They govern an organization of 100 employees dedicated to saving the lives of residents and visitors alike. As a member of the fire board, I will be committed to make sure the communities and the people served in this district get the best possible service. I will be your steward, watching the dollars to make sure our precious tax funds are used wisely and are invested in improving our ability to quickly and efficiently respond to 911 calls and save lives. We are all in this together. We must look at each other as family. We must view the firefighters and the emergency medical personnel as our safety net and our assurance our lives and property are being protected. We need to respect the judgments of the experts that manage and operate this complex and extensive system of the Sedona Fire District. We as residents must have faith that the board members of the fire district know what they are doing and do not have any personal self-serving agenda. I am committed to live up to these standards.
Thank you, Al. Joy.
We, the people, as taxpayers, want to keep the cost to our public down, but it needs to be understood that with quality service comes a price. So how much is your life worth? It is up to the governing board, along with the district public information officer, to properly educate the community about the importance of having proper tools. Our top-tier first responders will use to save the life of your loved one or your life when you call 911. Knowledge is power. As to the contrary, ignorance is perilous. Having the right approach to educate people in a way that they will understand what we do as a fire district is key. Therefore, the Sedona Fire District must and will continue to strive to find new and more effective ways to educate and serve the public. As governing board member, it will be one of my jobs to help educate the public and also alleviate the fears that may lie within our residents by having an open door policy when it comes to inquiries. The fire service continues to progress as a customer-oriented service agency, but with quality service is the top priority. Fire service is a little different than big business, but not much when it comes to money, people, and products. In a technical sense, we are a service business providing the necessary and critical service to our community. Each of us as governing board members have to make the decision that the buck stops at our desk. As the 33rd president of our country, Harry Truman, said, the buck stops here. It is the taxpayer who foots the bill for the costly yet essential equipment that the property uses, but it is also the taxpayer who fully benefits from the same essential equipment and property that is utilized and ultimately saves the lives of our public. Successful and effective leaders build trustworthy relationships and follow through, and I hope to live up to that as a governing board member. I feel that successful leaders are born with certain characteristics, which can include honesty, high-quality listening skills, integrity, decisiveness, and the ability to follow rather than lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Jean?
Your elected board members are your representatives and your voice to the fire district. Who you choose to elect to the board, it should be carefully considered. They should not come with a personal, self-serving agenda, but willing to serve. The board and the firefighters want you to participate and be engaged. It's your fire department. Should you ever have questions and concerns or suggestions, I encourage you to attend a fire board meeting and speak your concern. You can obtain a meeting agenda by visiting sedonafire.org. Meetings are held at Station 1 in West Sedona on the third Tuesday, typically at 4:30. And there you can fill out a request to speak, and I hope you do. The board wants to hear from you, and your fire chief is always willing and available to citizens, and so feel free to call on him. If you've never had a need to dial 911, I hope you have never. You do not, but if that need occurs, I believe you expect expertly trained and equipped firefighters to arrive promptly and trained to handle any situation, be it an overwhelming disaster, a fire, or a medical emergency. This November 6th, you have an opportunity to ensure that those that sit on the fire board are experienced and have your best interests at heart, responsible to you as a taxpayer, and who seek fiscally sound methods to enhance the delivery of service. The bottom line is saving lives and property. We're blessed to live in a community that can support a great fire district focused on saving lives and your safety. The November 6th election date is drawing near. Please don't let fear-mongering distract you. You are electing 3 people to a 5-member board. 3 is a voting block or quorum and will determine the future direction of your fire district. Elect Gene McCarthy and Al Camello to fill those vacancies on the Sedona Fire Board and help us sustain the fire district's critical mission. You will elect a person with knowledge in fire and EMS experience and a community businessman who's passionate, loves Sedona, and willing to serve.
Thank you, Gene. And Russ. I think you got it.
Yeah, okay. Before I was seated on the Airport Authority Board, which is they had cash reserves of $100,000 and
Excuse me, just a second.
they had cash reserves of $100,000 and debt of $1.2 million. At the end of my 10-year term on the board, they had no debt and cash reserves of $1.3 million. During the same period that I served on the board, we made over $20 million in airport improvements without receiving any tax dollars from the county or the city. This is the kind of responsive leadership I can bring, and Mike and Dwight will bring to the Sedona Airport Board. We will work to see all tax dollars are used in the most effective and efficient manner, always making safety first. We will listen to your concerns and be your advocates. It has been 8 years since the voters had an opportunity to vote for fire board members. The fire district's portion of your tax bill has more than doubled during that 7-year period. On an annualized basis, that's over 10% per year. This has far outstripped inflation and after adjusting for any population growth. We will be your advocates, and we also will put safety first for both the public and the firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. If I didn't mention it, both Dwight and Mike have provided responses to the League of Women Voters questions, and copies of their responses are out in the lobby for you. In closing, I would like to thank the candidates for being here this evening. Thank you very much. You've done an amazing job, and it's sometimes challenging to get questions you don't know ahead of time. Audience, thank you for your participation. There were a few questions that I didn't get to, and I know the candidates will be staying afterwards, so you can ask them personally. It's exciting for me when there are more questions than can get answered, because that means there's such engagement from the community, so thank you. A couple of quick reminders. Election day for the general election is November 6th. The last day to register to vote, to change your party registration or update your address is October 9th. Early voting ballots will be mailed out beginning October 10th. Completed ballots can be returned by mail or dropped off at an election location in your city or at the county election offices. Also, just so you know, we have a one-page information handout on the 5 ballot measures on the November ballot, also at the back out in the lobby. As a final reminder, please come up and ask the candidates other questions if they did not get answered tonight. And I want to remind you to vote, because that is where our power is. Thank you.